Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us in Talking Points. We are receiving Gilbert Ngimndoh. He is a civil society actor. Gilbert, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Babila. Thank you very much for being on stage with you once again to talk about particularly the issues which this country has had to suffer a lot. And when we are about to evaluate them, I want to think that we'll take all the perspectives that are involved in the 11 years of a memory when the souls win, but actually it looks like nothing has been done to actually redeem that situation.
All right, before we come to that, what is making news in Cameroon today is the arrest, the detention, and of course the trial of some political leaders, notably of the CRM political party, Professor Maurice Kamto, Professor Alain Foguet, Christian Penda Ekoka, we have Albin Zongan, we equally have people like Celestin Jamen, and most recently Barrister Michel Ndoki. What's your take on all these arrests and trials?
Whether who is in prison now, the major issue here is that they all belong to the political party CRM. The militants who are in prison presently with the leader, Professor Kamto. There are so many things at stake now. What is at stake particularly is that I want to take the situation here in Cameroon, what happened even before January 26, when the most referred to march was took place from where the leaders of the CRM have been in prison up to now. I want to compare that situation with what happened in France in the march that took place before that. They were clearly
yellow vest protests.
Exactly. They were clearly contrasting situations. In Cameroon here, we find that when CR militants and their leaders were moving to protest what is described as elections hold up or their supposed victory during the October 7 presidential elections in Cameroon, the reaction of the authority and policy makers in Cameroon was in sharp contrast to what happened in France. In France, the police were there to guide the demonstrators. But in Cameroon, the police were there to repress and to exercise a lot of violence, drive home, repress, and cause a lot of problems. Now, the questions that every Cameroonian will have to ask here is this. Are these movements constitutionally legitimized? Are they supposed to be correctly institutionalized by the Constitution? This is where the whole problem comes from.
And the Constitution indicates that it's the right of every Cameroonian to protest.
If the Constitution gives that demonstrative right to Cameroonians to protest what they feel they are legitimately correct to demonstrate, then the question we should be asking the policymakers of this country is, are they imprisoning Professor Kamto and his militants for acts committed during the march, or they are imprisoning him for the march itself? Because I have been very keen to speeches offered by the by the Minister of Communication of Cameroon. I have been very keen to personalities in this country who happen to be policymakers, the way they react to the imprisonment of Professor Kamto. The impression they have given is that the march was provoking insecurity, provoking insurrection, and one of the charges leveled against him in court is even that provoke insurrection. The 2014 law that was voted by Parliament in this country, which is against terrorism, I would believe that it was not in any way curtailing Cameroonians' legitimate rights to protest what they feel they have to. I want to think that it was a law voted to actually preempt situations where a Cameroonian can be carrying arms before that law is quoted. I seem to doubt why a political party which is demonstrating its disgruntledness, the militants are not only harassed, shot at, wounded. Some of them, like the Barrister Celestin Jamen that you talked of, was carried to the hospital And from information from rightful authority was that he was taken out of that hospital by the Cameroonian police.
And taken to Yaoundé.
And taken to Yaoundé.
And so on.
And here we turn to doubt if human life is no longer valuable. It is the impression the authority of the country, I don't want to say a political party, because I think that within the party which has power in this country called the CPDM, they are very righteous Cameroonians who, if the fate of this nation is left into their hands, this nation will follow the path that is desired by, if not all, almost all. I want to think that some people are somewhere willing to and ready to pull this country down to mud. Down to mud, because I don't see why the police will lose the army will lose the republican value they are supposed to have, and then descend as to intimidating, oppressing political leaders, not terrorists, political leaders, not any person carrying out a revolt that is putting the security and the peace that the country enjoys to question. It is a political demonstration, even though which the constitution guarantees that political party.
Even though that peace, that security and peace is today threatened more than ever before in the northwest, in the southwest, in the far north, in the east, and even some parts of the south region. Now, talking about the 2008 February 2008 protests in some towns of the country, 11 years have gone down memory lane. When you look at the socio-economic situation of Cameroon today, do you have the impression that something has changed?
Thank you very much. But before I get there, you have to permit me a little bit to say this. The way our country is now, the socio-political nature of our country now projects only 3 regions. I don't want to say 4, 3 regions. We can say this littoral, the central, the south. I don't want to call the east because our boundaries with Central Africa are never at ease. There are only 3 regions in this country which presently enjoy peace in this country. The rest of the 7 are not peaceful at all. And the question here is, what are the security, what are the policymakers, the authorities of this country doing about that? There's a big problem. The whole groundnut, the weeks behind, it started from Boundary. Construction companies started, and it spread like wildfire across the groundnut. And we don't forget the Boko Haram situation, which has never been laid to rest in the north. And in the east, we have our problems. Northwest and southwest, we have our problems. Now, coming back to the socio-economic problem that Cameroonians
provoked the 2008
uprising in Cameroon. That uprising was provoked by the syndicate of transporters in Cameroon, but it suddenly assumed the shape of a burial in Bamileke land, where when you see a Bamileke wailing, crying, and rubbing himself in mud during a funeral, don't think that he is only mourning the deceased at that moment. He is profiting from the deceased to remember his own lost persons. That is the way it is, and that is what that February uprising of 2008 was in Cameroon. It was provoked by protests by the transport sector, but it manifested, it metamorphosed to an anti-beer demonstration. Why? Because people were coming out with accumulated problems. The question you ask is this: what is the evaluation 11 years as of now? You know, that problem was a purely socio-economic one. But the response from policymakers, the President of the Republic himself, that fateful Wednesday, attributed the issue to political frustration. He claimed that some political losers in Cameroon are manipulating the youths. And I just think that the president was not advised by any person, because he is so mature that he cannot be advised by any person in this country to think that legitimate claims by Cameroonians. Petrol was almost touching 600 francs, and transporters were not seeing the possibilities of coping with it. People were coming out with plaques, cut down prices of basic goods, basic commodities in this country. If the president decided to give a political touch, a political solution to cries from Cameroonians that were purely socio-economic, then there was a problem there. And once that is done, you realize that the decisions that will be taken will be misdirected. And that's exactly that was done. That's exactly what was done.
11 years down memory lane, has anything changed? From what back to worse?
That's exactly what I am saying. That's exactly what I am saying. That a political decision was taken to resolve a purely socio-economic grievance. And it became a misplaced priority, because when you see that immediately after that, the president signed a decree reducing the prices of certain commodities in Cameroon. But we must be very honest to know that nothing was reduced. The Ministry of Commerce passed its time moving from places to places, but practically nothing was nothing was reduced, because consumers' rights, we must acknowledge, are never respected in this country. Producers and suppliers manifest what they like. They decide and they implement what they like. And unfortunately, the government is not even coming in on time. If only it will come in, it is never on time to try to salvage the situation of consumers. After
what should be done to prevent such an incident?
I think the President of the Republic should sit up. The President of the Republic should sit up and stop picking his pen and signing decrees and never forming any follow-up committee. Once a decree is signed and it is made published, to those who are policymakers, it is a big achievement. But I think that the achievement can only come in when that decision, that decree signed is actually executed. It's actually executed.
With impact on the people at the grassroots.
Exactly. If it does not twinkle, if it does not cascade, it does not transcend down to the grassroots, then no decision has been taken, because that decision is taken for the influence, for the interest of those who are down there, not policymakers.
Thanks, Gilbert Ngimndoh, member of